In 1949, President Harry S. Truman and the Democratic-controlled Congress pursued a mix of ambitious domestic and foreign policies, most notably Truman's Fair Deal agenda, which largely aimed to extend New Deal reforms. While much of the Fair Deal was blocked by a powerful conservative coalition of Republicans and Southern Democrats, the actions taken by the administration and the Congress did draw significant opposition and criticism, which contemporaries viewed as negative for various reasons. One major legislative act passed was the Housing Act of 1949, which provided federal funds for slum clearance and the construction of 810,000 units of public housing. While framed as a progressive move to address the severe housing shortage, the slum clearance component has been historically criticized for its impact, as it often resulted in the displacement of poor and minority communities with little regard for their immediate relocation, essentially tearing down neighborhoods without adequate replacement housing initially, which critics saw as a failure that harmed the very people it was supposed to help. The Truman administration's attempts to reform labor law were also seen negatively by different groups. While Truman had promised to repeal the Republican-passed Taft-Hartley Act, a law heavily criticized by organized labor, the Democratic-controlled Congress failed to achieve a full repeal. Instead, the efforts to revise labor law were ultimately watered down, leaving much of the restrictive Taft-Hartley provisions in place, which labor unions opposed as anti-worker. This inaction was viewed as a major failure and a concession to conservative elements within their own party and the Republican opposition. On the domestic front, the Democrats faced internal opposition that resulted in the failure to pass key civil rights legislation, such as anti-lynching laws and a permanent Fair Employment Practices Commission, which Truman had strongly advocated. The ability of conservative Southern Democrats to successfully filibuster these bills in the Senate was a major blow to the administration's civil rights platform, and critics on the left condemned the Democratic leadership for not fighting harder or for making compromises that undermined effective progress for minority rights. The Central Intelligence Agency Act of 1949 was enacted on June 20th. This law legally established the Central Intelligence Agency, granting it broad authority and special provisions, including exceptions from standard government auditing and personnel procedures. While intended to provide effective foreign intelligence gathering during the burgeoning Cold War, its creation laid the legal groundwork for an agency that would later face substantial criticism and controversy for its secrecy, lack of transparency, and involvement in covert operations at home and abroad, actions which many have deemed negative and detrimental to democracy and international relations. In foreign policy, the ratification of the North Atlantic Treaty in 1949 and the subsequent establishment of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization in August, followed by the Mutual Defense Assistance Act of 1949 providing military aid, formalized a significant and expensive shift toward a Cold War strategy of military and financial commitment against the Soviet Union. Critics from both the political left, who sought cooperation with the Soviet Union, and the right, who opposed foreign entanglement and the immense cost, viewed this path negatively, seeing it as an overly aggressive, costly, and dangerous departure from traditional American foreign policy that unnecessarily escalated global tensions and risked a wider conflict. Furthermore, following the Soviet Union's successful test of an atomic bomb in late 1949, Truman was soon to make the decision in early 1950 to accelerate the development of the much more powerful hydrogen bomb, with the clear potential for global annihilation that Truman himself wrestled with. In the realm of finance and taxation, the administration was accused by critics of making merciless demands for taxes, with conservative opponents arguing that the administration's fiscal proposals, which often failed to pass, would have resulted in an unacceptably high percentage of the national income going to taxes, thus restricting free enterprise and expanding the reach of the federal government, a common conservative critique of the time. Additionally, in the early Cold War climate, accusations of pro-communist infiltration and corruption within the Truman administration's agencies, particularly the Internal Revenue Bureau, and controversies like the mink coat deep freeze scandal were widely circulated by opponents, though these were mainly administrative scandals and accusations rather than specific laws or acts.